So, what about when somebody's dog whistling? And there are many ways to do this. Do you have a definition for dog whistling?
No, I don't, because there are so many different definitions, and it depends on the context. So I guess whistle your dog at me.
Well, you know what? I'll give you some that I've experienced myself. That'd be the easiest to reenact, which is, let's say I'm somebody talking about you in front of other people. It could be family, it could be friends, it could be coworkers. And I say, yeah, you should have seen what he made me go through. Like, can you believe it? I mean, he had me sit in the car with all this stuff in there. I was squeezed like a sausage in a can. And I was like, really? Like, you're going to treat me this way? And keep in mind, I just expressed this in front of all these other people.
If that were me and I were in that situation and my partner or my friend said something like that, I would probably say, it sounds like you're having a lot of big feelings about that. Maybe that's something we can talk about later on our own. I'd really like to hear more about that. I would not have the discussion in front of others. I wouldn't defend myself. It's completely inappropriate to have a discussion like that.
Yeah.
At least for me, in my reality and what works for me, I wouldn't buy into that. I wouldn't get sucked into it. And how do you think someone with a lack of understanding of this would respond to that?
Probably how I responded at the time. I felt large amounts of deep sadness. I didn't know what to say at the moment, and I just went to the restroom, took a break, and I actually did have some tears there because it was very sad to not just witness it. I could empathize a little bit with her experience or this person's experience at this moment, but also see how it was inappropriate to do it in a public setting in front of others the way that it was done and expressed. So that I experiencing sadness, witnessing it as in relation to different, perceptions of what was happening.
I mean, to be perfectly honest, a lot of times when I get assaulted out of the blue, I go into freeze and flight. I just numb out and fawn. I can collapse. And it can take 5 minutes to 2 weeks for me to wake up and go, oh, I need to respond to it this way. I've just learned that's part of my trauma response. And so most likely if that hit me, I wouldn't have replied at all. I'd have just let it go. But eventually when I unthawed, I would respond that way. Usually if you're dealing with somebody that doesn't know emotional mastery, they'll double down. If I said something like, it sounds like you're having some feelings about that. I'd love to hear more. We should talk about that later when it's just the two of us. Mm-hmm. If they don't know about this, they want vengeance now. They will usually double down in some way. Of what? Are you afraid to talk about it in front of everybody else? Sounds like you'd really like to talk about this. I'm more than happy to. If you'd like to step over here, I'd be happy to hear everything you're going on with. In other words, see, I'm not changing them. I'm not saying, this is what people do. They take their inventory. How dare you bring this up in front of other people? This is between us. You shouldn't talk like that. That's rude of you. Look at you. You think it's bad I left you in the car? Look what you're doing now.
Right.
Now you have 2 children that have just dropped into 4 years old and they're fighting over Tonka trucks, and whose is bigger. And that's how most relationships go. It's a complete lack of containment, internal boundaries, and severe codependence. And so in other words, I use a wall of pleasantness. I empathize, I hear that this is very important to you. So in other words, the first thing I'm doing is I'm paying attention, not to their words, but what they're feeling emotionally. Because we just use words to try and share what's going on in our hearts and our bodies.
Right.
Words are useless. It's what do the words convey emotionally? So that's what I'm always listening for. Well, the words in that scenario are, I want to be heard. I'm having big feelings. Now, I don't know specifically what they are because we haven't talked. So that's why I leave it general. I hear that you're having some big feelings about that. I'd love to hear you. So I'm using a wall of pleasantness that's saying, I'm not okay. It goes against my reality and my boundary system to have a discussion here in front of everybody. Your reality is different. You seem to want to have it. I'm not asking you to change. You get to be whoever you want. But I'm setting the boundary politely, letting them know this is what's okay with me. And
Yeah.
I'm going to go over here and make you a priority, which seems to be what you want. Because remember, leaving in the car, you weren't a priority. So I'm making an invitation. I am going to prioritize you right now. You're that important to me. But under these conditions. And if they're really detached from themselves in the childlike state, they won't take the invitation.
Right.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to ruin my time at the party. I'm going to talk about it now. And, they'll just double down. They'll just keep going because they want to suck you into that childlike state and use you to relive their unhealed childhood trauma where they were the child yelling up at mom and dad or whatever the situation was. It's like, no, I'm going to get it. Well, at that point, after I've, twice politely used a wall of pleasantness and offered an opportunity, on the third time, I'd say, I hear that you really want to have this discussion. It just doesn't work for me in this format. So I'm just going to step over here and go see what they're doing. In other words, again, remember what I said earlier. No one abuses us unless we allow it. And if we stay and join in it, now we're co-abusers. We're both doing it to each other. Well, it goes against my morals and values. So when I'm in my mature and moderate state, I don't abuse them and I don't allow them to abuse me. But I also don't take their inventory and tell them what they should feel, think, do, or believe. They get to be whoever they want. Now, if I don't like how they're, if this pattern continues and I don't see any, for me, if I don't see any work to address it, then most likely I'd leave the relationship because I would find that abusive.
Right.
But I would, if they asked me, I'd go, look, we just have different values. You think having discussions in front of people works. For me, it doesn't. You like olives on your pizza. I like pineapple. Like, we're just different. It's not a rejection of you. We're just different. So go find someone who likes olives on your pizza. I'll find someone who likes pineapple. Big deal.
Yep.
So there's how, the many layers to how to address a situation like that.
It seems that this is a great response example for somebody that can have some containment and boundary application as they learn it from you, for example, right now. But what about somebody that may experience an overwhelm of emotions and is not able to communicate as clearly and calm and collected as you just illustrated? So maybe they have a wave of guilt or emotions they can't even decipher.
Well, that's all indicative of a person who doesn't have emotional mastery and is very early in the recovery journey or hasn't even pursued the recovery journey. They won't. They're just going to immediately react from their childhood. There's nothing they can do. I mean, you have to learn new skills. They have to make a commitment to themselves that I'm done doing this. It's costing me too much. The consequences are too big. And so I'm going to have to learn this stupid emotional stuff. I don't want to talk that way. That's stupid. No, they should just be different. At some point, that strategy, they're going to have to take ownership that it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
But if they don't, there's nothing. They're going to their brain and body is programmed to respond exactly right from their trauma. There's nothing they can do. We have to learn all of these things we were never taught. And so, look, even as many years as I've been working on this, there are times I totally react as though I've done nothing. And I explode or say something terrible. Most often, what happens is very quickly after it, I get into reality and I see, oh my God, I did it. And when that happens, I immediately take ownership. There have been times I've been in the process of screaming as though I've never done any emotional mastery work, and then like literally caught myself midstream and just gone, oh my God, hold on, I'm a mess right now. I'm not even seeing you. I'm reliving my dad. I need time. Wait a minute. And I may go, look, I need to go off and deal with this. I got to get centered because I'm so out of whack right now. I can't do this. I apologize, but I promise you, when I get contained again, I will come back because this conversation and what you're experiencing is important to me. But I need to leave now. And if they're like, no, I just leave because I have to protect both of us from me.
Mm.
And so
there are different levels, you know, to even get to where you're expressing right now. And that level is aware, yet skilled, somewhat skilled, as you can see, as I can see right now, as that's to communicating awareness, even if it took a moment to realize it, but then communicating with grace and patience towards, right, yourself and the other person.
you have to learn a whole new language.